LigerCast, the sound of learning.
Hello everyone, welcome back to LigerCast, the sound of learning. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Darlene. Here at Liger Learning Center, we students...
Wait, Darlene, excuse me.
You distract me, Wing Hua.
Can I introduce myself too?
Oh, sorry, now it's your turn.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Wei.
Yes. That is my co-host, Wing Hua. Now let me start again.
Oi.
Here at Liger Learning Center in Phnom Penh, we students focus on a number of attributes we call change agent characteristics to enhance our education in order to change our lives and our country for the better.
These characteristics are
communicator,
networker, proactive, creative,
competitive, problem solver,
innovative,
collaborator,
dot connector,
opportunist,
passionate.
These are skills we are using to give ourselves a better future, one that looks bright as the Cambodian economy improves and the youth of our nation gains influence.
However, back in the 1980s and 90s, life was far more difficult for many children as our country continued to recover from civil war. And yet today, those same children, those born to families that lost everything to the Khmer Rouge, make up a small but growing middle class.
What do you mean by middle class?
Well, it is different in every country, and Cambodia has no exact definition. The magazine The Economist said middle class means that a family can spend about 1/3 of their income on things they don't need to survive.
I see. Here in Cambodia, that's about 10% of our population. Compare that to 80% in Indonesia.
Right, so it's clear there have been major challenges to take steps away from poverty for the generation born right after the Khmer Rouge. And yet, many have done it.
How does this happen? How can a child who was given very limited opportunity grow up healthy and safe, get educated, and become a professional? And how can their journey inspire our own generation as we grow up?
Today, we're going to meet a man whose journey can provide such inspiration, not just to Cambodians, but to any kids dealing with challenges in life. A man who used many of our change agent characteristics.
What were they again?
Communicator, networker, proactive, creative, competitive, innovative, collaborator, problem solver, dot connector, opportunist, passionate.
This man used those skills on his path from poverty and tragedy to success and happiness. Let's hear his story.
Hello, I'm Sabun South. I live in Phnom Penh. I was born in 1983 in Phnom Penh province, which is about 7 kilometers from Vietnam and Cambodia border, in a very remote village.
I met Sabun here at the Liger Learning Center, where today he works as our operation manager. I have heard he'd had an interesting challenge, and I interviewed him to get the whole story.
My father's name is Ut, and my mother's name also Ut. So the people in the village normally call me a pair of Ut. My mother died when I was 1 year of age, so I can't remember her face or having a picture of her with me.
My wife passed away and left me 5 kids to look after. But because my family was really poor, that made me try harder to take care of them, and sometimes all the kids have me. Sometimes there was not enough food.
That's Priap Ut, Sabun's father, who is now 76 years old. Back then, he had lost everything to the Khmer Rouge and was now left with 5 kids to care for alone in a village, suffering terrible poverty.
Lack of infrastructures, no proper school. Some day I turn up at schools and there would be no teachers, or other day the teacher would request the student to help in the rice field. There was no healthcare center. The whole village was poor, and my family was one of the poorest families.
That sounds like a difficult life. Was that common in Cambodia at this time?
Very common. After the fall of the Khmer Rouge in 1979, Cambodia was in bad shape. 300,000 people starved to death between 1979 and 1980.
Tonight's special report is about another disaster in Southeast Asia, this one in Cambodia. Again, the statistics seem almost meaningless. The The casualties of the Cambodian disaster are not being measured in the tens of thousands, but in the millions. It's estimated that 2.5 million Cambodians, half the population, could die or is already dying from starvation and disease. It's being called the greatest human disaster since the Second World War.
During the time, it's so complicated. The policy is complicated, and the Khmer people also fighting each other during the time. We have the civil war.
This is Sat Sampor, a close friend of the Burns who grew up in a very similar circumstances.
Most of the people, they fled. They moved to Thailand in refugee camp a lot.
And this year drove the Pol Pot regime from power. But the remnants of his followers fight on today against the Vietnamese forces and the new Cambodian government. The result has been mass upheavals and sanctuary for some in neighboring Thailand.
The UN responded by opening refugee camps in Thailand right on the border, and Cambodians traveled there in great numbers. Sabun was one of them.
So when I was about 8 years old, I left my community with my elder brothers and sister to live in a refugee camp.
The children traveled for 5 days to reach the camp. The journey was full adventure and risk.
The last day we had to walk through landmine forest, where there were still some Khmer Rouge soldiers in the forest. We were robbed for money, and that was considered as lucky.
Lucky? How is it lucky to be robbed?
Well, for one thing, they didn't step on landmines, as many others did, losing life or limbs, and they also avoided attack by the deadly Khmer Rouge.
The Khmer Rouge, they would play the game with their mates, and the rule for them was simple. If anyone would shot dead, then they would get a packet of cigarette in return.
Horrible. Were things at least better in the refugee camp?
Life was a lot better. We got access to a better education, healthcare, and food.
The refugee camp is so very big, more than 4 square kilometers, and 100,000 families live there.
This is Sat Sampor again. He and his family lived in a refugee camp close by for nearly 10 years.
So my childhood over there, the UNHCR support us everything for food, clothes, and everything. The kids would study 6 days a week. We are so grateful of the UN that support us almost 10 years. We are so grateful, and they give us everything, and we never forget that.
The international agencies, Red Cross and UNICEF, have finally been able to negotiate access to Cambodia to feed the starving and give medical aid to the sick.
Well, this sounds like an improvement.
It was, though it didn't come without challenges. The Khmer Rouge forces were still a threat, often coming into the camp during the night to rob the refugees or dropping bombs.
We had to get up and find a safe place to hide underground.
And eventually, the camps were shut down. Cambodia held its first national election in 1993, and the UN began to send refugees back to their native country.
We were sent back to our hometown, and I thought that was it. That was where I belonged to, and I was going to grow up there, then would get married and become a rice farmer like the other villagers.
However, the situation in the village had not changed. Ot had 5 children to care for again, and he was desperate for a solution. He came to a heartbreaking decision.
My fathers and my biggest sister wanted to send me and my other 2 brothers to live in the orphanage.
After the Civil War, there were orphaned children all over Cambodia, and these centers were open to care for them. They would have food, shelter, healthcare, and access to education. Here's how Ot put it.
I am hoping that Sabun will be a great person and he will be a smart kid. Also, I'm hoping that the orphanage will be looking after him. I also feel so happy that my kid can go to this amazing orphanage where everyone looks after him and treated him like really well.
It must have been very hard to say goodbye to his 3 sons.
I felt real pity for my kids. To think of my kids being away from their father
ឃើញថាកូនឃ្លាតឆ្ងាយពីឪពុកអស់ពីម្ដាយហើយគឺឃ្លាតឆ្ងាយពីឪពុកមិនដឹងថ្ងៃណាពេលណានឹងបានជួបគ្នាកូនវិញទៀតទេ
I didn't know when we will meet each other again.
I am sure no parents wanted to send their kids away unless they see a better future for their kids. And I am sure that's how he made the decision too.
Sabun didn't want to go. His sister had a plan to convince him.
I didn't want to go away from my family again. I wanted to stay with my father, so I cried and refused to leave home. But my sister lied to me and said I would get $50 per month. So I thought, wow, that was great. Living in an orphanage, getting $50 per month. I will use that money to help my family.
Opportunist.
Convinced, Sabun and his two older brothers moved to the orphanage, a former army barracks with about 80 kids, funded by Princess Norodom Ranrat. The orphanage was a more stable environment than the village, but it was not an easy life.
The living situation back then wasn't great. Food was okay, better than food at home, but in a small place we share with all the children. In a room we share about 10, 15 children, and on a small bed I had to share with my two other brothers.
They were very, very old and broken, in terrible condition.
Who is this now?
This is Rosanna White. She is someone who will become very important in Sabun's story. For now, you just need to know that she'd come to work at the orphanage. Coming from Australia, the conditions in the Cambodian orphanage were quite a change.
The roof had big holes in the ceiling, so when it rained, it used to rain on the beds, and the children had to move their beds out of the way so they wouldn't get wet. We had no electricity, we only had a generator, and we had no bathrooms like you have. We had to have moituk out in the field with a water pump.
And we didn't have access to clean water. I think it's probably about 10 kilometers away from the place to collect water and bring it back to the centers.
Even with all that, it was a good place for the children to grow up compared to the alternatives.
The children were very happy, even though the place was not nice, because we were safe and they were getting good food every day and we were sending them to school. So they were very happy and felt safe.
I'm scared to ask, what about the $50?
Well, Sabun looked into that on the day he arrived.
I asked other children who already been in the center about the money, and they said there's no such thing of giving you $50 per month. If you're lucky, you get 1 baht.
The Thai baht is the currency they used in that province. 1 baht was about 100 real.
Less than 3 cents in US dollars back then.
So that was really disappointed.
Darling, I noticed that Sabun was living in an orphanage, but he was not an orphan. He still had a father.
Yes, and if the heads of the orphanage knew that, he would be kicked out. And so Sabun and his brothers were forced to lie to everyone, to tell them that their father was dead.
When you say you are orphan, you don't have parents. And if they knew that we have parents, we would send back home. When I arrived, I had to tell lie, and it was hard. I had to tell them that they didn't have any parents.
I rather tell the orphanage a lie, and my kid would have a place to live and learn for their future than living without anything.
In Cambodia, it's a really bad thing to say your parent or your father are dying when they are not dying, and they just it's really, really sad for me.
He was surrounded by other children who were true orphans, having to pretend to be one of them. It was very difficult, and the situation made it so he couldn't even communicate with his family.
Back then, I didn't stay connected with my father or any family for many years, as there were no telephone or other way to communicate with the family. I cry a lot at night When my brother asked me, why you cry? And I just said, nothing, just something in my eyes. And actually, I wanted to come back home.
But as time went on, Sabun adapted to live in the orphanage and took advantage of the opportunities he had there, mainly a chance to get an education. The orphans were sent to government schools and had to endure long travel to get there each day. The orphanage moved locations a lot, and Sabun's classes kept being interrupted. He had to take the third grade 3 times. Sabun persevered, where other kids just gave up.
Education has always been important for me because I grew up in a disadvantaged family, and I always think that the only way to help me better is to have a good education. Also, I have 2 other brothers. I can't avoid school. He always keep an eye on me and make sure I go to school. That age, I love sleeping very much.
But sleep was very hard to come by. Sabun was awoken every day at 4 a.m. to do his chores before the long walk or bike ride to the school. At night, the big dormitories and the complete lack of privacy and personal space made it difficult to study.
I normally stay late, waiting for other kids to sleep, and then I turn on the fuel lantern and study. That was a good time to study.
Passionate, proactive.
He sacrificed a lot to keep going to school.
He did. And when the orphanage finally moved to a big city, Phnom Penh, more challenges arrived.
It was harder for me and other friends because the distance between the rich and the poor. Now we were orphaned. We didn't have money. We didn't have nice clothes or transportation. So we were a bit behind the people in the modern city, and it was difficult for us. And it does impact our study a little bit because some kids didn't want to go back to school for that reason.
More kids dropped out or checked out. The friends he made at his previous schools were gone. Yet Sabun kept working hard and was recognized as one of the top students. However, back home in the orphanage, he struggled with the hierarchy based on age and size.
I like doing things by my hand. I want to create things. I like to invent things.
Innovative.
Creative.
When I see the elder people making something or doing something, I say to myself, I could do it better than that. If I ask them, can I look after it, they would think, oh, you're too young, you're not capable to do that. I want to get involved in other things. I didn't want to waste my things that I believe in. I just want to get in there and do it.
Passionate.
Sometimes I know how he feels. Knowing him now, it hard to imagine Sabun as a young kid.
I was a quiet kid. I had a very serious face.
When I met him, he was very thin, lots of muscle, but very thin.
This is Rosanna again, the Australian woman who came to work at the orphanage.
He wasn't very confident, and he was very shy and found it very difficult to speak to foreigners. I used to tell him that, when you speak with foreigners, you have to look at them in their eye, not look down at their feet, and always shake hands, and just to speak slowly and say what you feel. And he learned very quickly, and now he can speak to anybody about anything.
Networker.
Wait, Darlene, I'm confused. How does a woman from Australia end up working in a Cambodian orphanage?
Well, for Rosanna, it started with the TV program. She was sitting at home one night, and a documentary came on talking about the situation in Cambodia and the orphanages full of children who needed help, needed sponsors.
When I saw the documentary, I have to admit I knew nothing about Cambodia. I'd heard of Cambodia vaguely, but I really didn't know anything about Pol Pot. I was very ignorant. I remember, thinking just how terrible it was that still in this day and age there were people and children in Cambodia that had no food, had no homes, were orphans.
They go and find sponsors in Australia or in other part of the world. Say, these are the kids. Can you please sponsor this kid? Taking care of their clothes, paying for their schools, and they have to pay certain amount of money every year to cover one child.
You can bless these poor children of underdeveloped countries with a miracle, a way out of the darkness of poverty into the light of a new and better life. All it takes to work this miracle is 70 cents and a heart.
But Rosanna wanted to do more than just send money from afar.
And I had always wanted to work with one of the organizations like World Vision or Save the Children, but I couldn't because they wanted people who were doctors or nurses, and I'm not a doctor or a nurse. So when I rang the lady from the Australia-Cambodia Foundation, she was only one woman on her own, so she was very desperate to have help, so she agreed to have me. That's why I came, because I thought I'd be able to do something and help the children, even if it was only for 10 weeks.
Rosanna arrived in Cambodia and quickly fell in love with the country.
I love the people. I love the way they are. They're so gentle and always smiling. Even when they have problems, they're always smiling, very gentle, very kind. And I love the food, and I love the culture, and I love the water buffalo.
And those 10 weeks turned into many, many years.
And she met Subun at the orphanage?
I used to teach English at night at the orphanage to the older children. That's how I met Subun. He was in my class.
I met her in 1998 when she came to teach English in the centers as a volunteer.
He wanted to learn English, and he would come sometimes before my class and sometimes after my class to learn and ask lots of questions. He was very eager to learn as much as he could.
Opportunist, communicator.
While Subun continued to learn, he was getting older and taking on a stronger leadership role at the orphanage.
He was the Mr. Fix-It of the orphanage, so anything that needed fixing, everyone would call Subun. He was very good at doing everything around the orphanage.
Problem solver.
Innovative. And he became someone the younger orphans could rely on.
I like looking after people too. I care about other people.
Passionate.
He cared about Rosanna, and he looked after her too. Their friendship grew.
He became my helper. He used to take me everywhere if I had to go shopping so that I didn't get lost. Subun was very good in helping me so that I would know how to speak to Khmer people and how to act when I was near mum and how to sit so that I had my feet tucked under.
It seems Subun and Rosanna were becoming like family. But what about Subun's real family? The father who was still alive?
Well, for almost 3 years, his father had no idea where his 3 sons were.
And my father lost track of where we were. He didn't know where we were because we moved from place to place.
And then one day, as Subun puts it, Ut took an adventure.
At that time, my eyes were weak and I couldn't see clearly. So I came to Phnom Penh to buy glasses. Then I heard from other people that my kids learned at the Santhal Muk school. After getting that information, I just went to the school and waited.
But he didn't see his sons that day.
Maybe his glasses weren't ready yet.
So Ut returned the next day, and at the end of the school day, he watched the kids exiting the school until finally he sees them, his boys.
The feeling at that time was the best feeling ever. Nothing in this world would be my happiest moment than this.
The first meeting was very emotional. That was really happiest moment after 2.5 years to see my fathers.
Ut was so proud to see his sons coming out of the school. Giving them the opportunity to go to such a school is why he sent them away to begin with.
I was thinking that that school was the place for him. That is his future.
LigerCast is brought to you by Cambodia Area Photography. CAP have professional drone pilots for incredible sky-high footage across the country. Don't miss the chance to further your business. For details, contact jane.k@ligercambodia.org. Cambodia Area Photography. Photography from an impossible angle.
So life was improving for Subun. His future looked more hopeful. And then on his 18th birthday, he had a rug pulled out from under him.
Huh? The rug pulled out from under him? What does that mean?
Here, let me show you. means the foundation his life had been built on was suddenly taken away. The policy of the orphanage was that once you turned 18, you had to leave.
And I said, that's it. That's the end of my life. I only had to study grade 10, have a little bit of English and a little bit of computers. I said, no ways I'm going to be having a good future.
Pessimism! Oh, wait, no.
Then I was lucky.
And that luck came in the form of a kind woman from Australia.
When he was 18, he had to leave the orphanage because he was an adult. So we got a little flat in Phnom Penh. And Sabun came to live with me there.
Wow, good for her.
And not only that, Rosanna also agreed to pay for Sabun to finish school.
She became my godmother or adopted mother. And I am glad it's called godmother. Even though I don't believe so much in a God, but she's a God for me. It has changed my life.
Can really feel the love.
Yeah.
It must have been funny. The Australian woman and the Khmer teenager sharing an apartment.
It was quite difficult to begin with. She tried. I know she tried her best, and I appreciate it. She tried to cook some Asian dishes. I mean, the taste wasn't like Asian.
He learned to eat Italian food because I'm Italian and I cook Italian food. But I only found out after a year or so that he didn't like food that was cooked with tomatoes. But because he was so kind, he never told me, so I never knew, and I kept cooking this food, and he ate it even though he didn't like it, so he was very sweet. We had a lovely time. We had a cat, and Sabun used to chase it around the house and tease it, and we had a lovely time. Many nights I think about it.
Rosanna gave Sabun a strong support system. She made sure that he always studied and did his homework. She provided a safe place to come home at the night and kept him fed and healthy. It helped him to get through the difficult adjustments to life in the real world.
In the orphanage, everything was provided. Food, shelters, clothes, school materials, you name it. Everything is not modern, but it was good enough for basic living. But when we left the orphanage, something that a lot of people didn't realize, and myself took me a long time to understand, is everything we need outside of the orphanage, even as a bottle of water, we have to pay for it.
Problem solver.
I understand better what getting the rug pulled up from under you means.
Yes, this lack of structure sent many of the former orphans adrift.
Some of them, they came out of the orphanage. They feel like their wing is free to fly. They just, got lost in the city and forgot about the school, forgot about their futures. And without somebody to mentor you, to guide you, I may be lost as well in the city.
Sabun didn't get lost. He finished secondary school, also working computer repair at an internet cafe, and as a junior graphic designer at a print shop.
Networker. Dot connector.
And when it came time to go to university, Rosanna stepped up yet again.
In university, I didn't pay for the fee. It was covered by Rosanna.
That Rosanna, what a peach.
Sabun attended Royal University of Phnom Penh. Again, his disadvantages early in life create new challenges.
Let me guess, he showed great determination if figures things out.
You know it.
In university years, I didn't have much fun, honestly, working during the day. It was a first full job and a proper job.
I loved how he kept referring to university as a job. So serious.
I tried really hard learning with friends and took extra classes, and I managed to get my certificate from my university.
Passionate.
Problem solver.
Next, Sabun worked for a few years as an operations assistant for a company importing meat and wine,
managing the day-to-day operation of inventory, deliveries, and customer relations.
And when his boss moved on,
I was promoted to be an operation manager running the whole place.
Opportunist.
Networker. Nailed it.
Sabun wasn't satisfied. He went back to school to get his MBA, and this time, he paid the fees himself.
I know that my father would be happier if I successful in my life, and I said I cannot go back home when I don't have a good job.
Competitive.
After he graduated, He worked some more in operations until the opportunity here at the Liger Learning Center arrived. The school was only an idea at this point and they needed an experienced Cambodian on a team.
I helped finding the land, buy the land and process the NGO registration as well as help in school construction along with other people.
That connector! So much work. Did he get to start having fun yet?
Well, he fell in love.
Meeting my wife wasn't coincident. We were not friends or we didn't know each other before. It's just one day I saw my colleague computer, she put on a desktop wallpapers photo of her joining her friend weddings. So I saw that, beautiful ladies. Then I said to my friend, who is that? And she said, oh, my friend from university. And I asked her, is she available? And my friend said, yes. So then I asked her for telephone numbers and I started to contact her. That's how, because I was a good communicator.
Communicator!
On her graduation days, I bought her flowers, invite her out for a pizza. That was the first time, and she didn't even remember my face at the second time because she was too shy to look at me. There's many other competitors. They wealthier than me. They know each other for a long time.
Competitive.
But 3 months we got engaged and married 1 year after, and that was in 2009. Now we have a son and expect another son in a few weeks.
The second son has actually been born since this interview. Little Sarebot is so cute.
I mean, as for life today, I start to enjoy my life a little bit now. I have a good family, good incomes, and I have 2 houses and a small car to take our family around.
And Sabun is still such an important member of the Liger team.
Now my job is an operation manager who involves in various things such as managing the facilities, construction, transportation, security, operational canteen.
Communicator, problem solver, collaborator.
Sabun appreciates all the people and places that helped get him where he is today and speaks of them often.
Thankful to my fathers and my sister who cheated me. That was really brave of him to send me away and believe that we're going to get a better future.
Sabun and his brothers have been able to take care of their father as he gets older.
Now he got a solar system, but I think he's really happy where he can watch TVs and fans and light. So that's really good for him. I think he's really pleased for that.
All I really wanted is to make my kids happy. I am also proud of them that they look after me just like I did to them. Especially Sabun, he works really hard. I feel so proud of myself that I have Sabun. I can't think of anything better than having him.
Sabun is also very grateful for the women in his life.
The 2 persons that I really appreciate in my life is my beautiful wife, who is really good at managing financials and look after the family. And also my godmothers, who's always be there for me when I need her. They are amazing people.
Though Rosanna spends most of her time back in Australia these days, she and Sabun are still very close.
Hey Mom, it's me here.
Oh, hi darling, hi.
Lovely words. Remind me of the old days, when we were together.
It was very funny. I can still keep seeing you chasing poor Marmalade around the floor.
I just want to say thank you again.
My pleasure, my darling.
She's so proud of him. You can hear it.
Oh, very much so. Very proud of him. He was a very, very good young boy and very good student. Very, very proud of him. He's a wonderful young man.
Sabun also remembers the orphanage that gave him his start. He occasionally goes to visit the kids who are there today.
I still love the place. It was home for 6 years. And when I visit the place, I normally spare some of my time to talk to the kids, share some of experience about outside worlds and, motivate them to study hard.
Communicator.
Especially, I show them some examples of, a real life when they preparing those children who ready to leave the orphanage. I just want them to give them a few tips and explain them so they not get lost in the city.
Well, darling, it's not an extraordinary story.
No.
At least not for Cambodians. Maybe to people in other countries.
Right. This has been our reality.
What it shows you is just how difficult, how complicated it has been for people of subsequent generation to reach middle class in this country.
Exactly. Subun's story is a good example of how those 4 years of Khmer Rouge power set our country up for decades of recovery.
Look at all he had to go through, the slim opportunities he had to recognize.
And be lucky. He was really lucky in lots of ways.
And even with all that, he still had to be a pretty exceptional guy to come through it okay.
Yes, but Wayne Hua, it also gives me hope. Those from Subun's generation who did come through it okay are the leaders of the country now. They are the one inspiring and teaching our generation how to take the next steps.
Collaboration, communication, problem solving.
Creative, proactive, innovative.
These are starting to sound familiar.
The Liger change agent characteristics. Use these skills along with Subun's determination and appreciation, and our future will be successful.
We can change our country and our whole world.
Okay, I think that's it for our episode. We gotta go. I've been Darlene. Thank you for listening.
I've been Wayne Hua.
Thank you for listening to LigerCast, the sound of learning.
Goodbye.
LigerCast is created by the students of Liger Learning Center in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. This episode was produced by Darlene with Wayne Hua, Srepet Sithong and Soliday. Written by Swanari Sithong, Darlene and Wayne Hua. Research by Panyarat. Editing by Mei Thong, Chua Somnang and Sopat. Educational support by Richard Raymond Harry Hebberg. The music you heard was by Microphone, Dakapi and Tana from Dhaka.
LigerCast would like to send a special thanks to Sao Sabun, Rosana White, Priya Ud, Set Sampua, Sao Zarun, Un Montan, and Michael MC Faden.
Next time on LigerCast.
We've been listening to possibly quite a large boat out there within 1 kilometre roughly of where we are right now. So I've asked all the boys to get ready. I'm going to get on a boat and chase them down.